Hello 5th graders, and welcome to another edition of Flipped Videos. Here is your what is it. Take a close look at what this could possibly be, and when we get to the end of the video, we'll see if you can figure it out. Alright, your learning goals for this video are, there are 3 separate things you're going to need to be able to do. You should be able to convert a decimal to a fraction, convert a fraction to a decimal, convert a decimal to a percent, and then convert a decimal to percent, and then be able to go back and forth between those things. An additional piece of knowledge you should learn from this is that you will understand what a percent is. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Writing decimals as fractions. So this is converting a decimal to a fraction. When you're looking at writing decimals as fractions, right here we have a decimal, we have 3 decimals. We have 15 hundredths, 8 tenths, and 125 thousandths. One of the things to look at first of all is thinking about place value. If I took my place value chart and I put it over here, and remember the place value represents the powers of 10, you will see that each one of these numbers lines up with one of my place values. If I have 5 in the hundredths part, that means I have 5 hundredths. If I have 1 in the tenths, I have 1/10. This would then be 15 hundredths. Even just saying it aloud, you can think of 15 hundredths as 15 over 100. So there, we'd have 15 over 100. To take that and turn it into a decimal, or that would be a fraction, and then you simplify by dividing both of them. And once you do that, you would get, doesn't want me to pull that, 3/20. So when you divide it, you get 3/20. Okay? Let's look at 8 tenths. So let's take our place value chart and put it over there. You can see the 8 falls in the tenths, and you can even hear it when you say 8 tenths. That 8 tenths would be written as 8 tenths. And then once again you want to simplify, and if you simplify 8 tenths, you're going to get 4 fifths. And then we have 125 thousandths. This one gets a little bit bigger, and we have our 5 in our thousandths place, and so we know we have 125 thousandths, and even just saying it, you would know that it'd be 125 over 1,000. And if we reduce that down and simplify that, we would get 1/8. So that is how you turn a decimal into a fraction. So go ahead, stop the video, do these 3 problems in your Cornell Notes page, and then we'll come back and correct them. Alright, so looking at it, we have 75 hundredths. You hear the word hundredths. You then know that 100 has to be your denominator, and 75 would be your numerator. So you have 75 hundredths, and if you want to simplify that down more, you would simplify it to 3/4. Okay? So you had 6 tenths. You should have heard that word tenths to understand that it's 6 tenths. You have 6 of them, so it's 6 over 10. And then if you simplify that and put it in the simplest form, you would have had 3 fifths. And then 201 thousandths. You hear that word thousandths, so you know the denominator must be 1,000. You have 201 thousandths, and then you simplify that down to, well, because 201 is prime, it doesn't simplify at all. All right, let's go on. Next what we're going to do is convert fractions to decimals. So this time we're going to take our fractions and we're going to convert it to decimals. The first thing you want to look at, and there's 2 ways you need to do this. One way is to convert the denominator to a power of 10. So if I have 1/5 And what I'm trying to do is find out what I can do to make an equivalent fraction that has a denominator of 10. Well, if I know that 5 times 2 equals 10, I know I multiply the numerator times that, and I have 2 tenths. 2 tenths can be, let me see if that drags out. Then converted to 2 tenths, when you hear that, you know that it is 0.2. 2 tenths. So to do this, you want to convert your denominator to a power of 10. And remember, a power of 10, if you look at our place value chart, is having a denominator of 100, 10, 1,000, and so on. Okay, so let's try that a couple times. So in this one, we have 3/5. Remember, the first thing you're going to do is try to convert the denominator into a power of 10. And I can look over here and I can see that 5 can be converted to 10 by multiplying by 2. And if I multiply the numerator and the denominator both by 2, I get 6 tenths. 6 tenths, written as a decimal, is 0.6. Okay? You can also see that what you're doing is using powers of 10, and you're doing 6 divided by 10 to the second power. So you're also converting it by using the powers of 10. Right down below we have 1 and 4 25ths. If we look at 25, 25 can be changed to 100 by multiplying by 4. So I'd have 1 and 1600ths. And here remember that when you have that one whole, that means you don't have a decimal. So your answer would be 1.16 with the 6 in the hundredths place. All right. Now sometimes the denominator cannot be put into a power of 10. So in this case, there really isn't anything I can multiply 3 by to get 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. There's nothing that will make this conversion equal. And so in this case, what you do is you divide the numerator by the denominator. And what you're going to do when you divide the numerator by the denominator is you take the numerator, which is 2, and you divide it by the denominator, which is 3. When you divide the numerator by the denominator, you have 2 divided by 3. And you divide using long division like we practiced before, and you would end up with 0.6, and 6 would go on forever. So this is the other way to convert a fraction into a decimal. All right, so if we look here, they did it here as well. You had 3/4. They did 3 divided by 4, and 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. Down here we have 3/8. 3 divided by 8. Remember, the numerator has to come first. If you take 3 divided by 8, you get 0.375. So that's another way to convert a fraction into a decimal. All right. Why don't you try the first two? You can also use a calculator. Using a calculator makes this considerably easier. When you have 2/5, you would have 2 divided by 5. Take your calculator, do 2 divided by 5, hit equals, and there you have 0.4. Now if you remember, this is the way we also calculate your scores on tests. So 9/11ths would be 9 divided by 11. If I have 9 divided by 11. And here I have a repeating decimal, 81, 81. And I'll put my line over both the 8 and the 1 because those are the numbers that continue to go on. And here I have 4 1/3. I already know that 4 is going to be my whole number. So I only need to do 1 divided by 3. So it's 1 divided by 3, which gives me a continuing 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay, so we have two kind of decimals that we found so far. We have terminating decimals, those that end, and we have repeating decimals, those that continue. When you have a repeating decimal, remember, you put that line over the top and you put it over all the numbers that repeat. All right, why don't you take a second and match these fractions up to the decimals. Okay, when you were done, 4/9 should have been converted to 0.4. That continues on. 1/10 would have been 0.1. 5/11, 0.45 with the 4/5 repeating. 5/8, 0.625. 4/5, 0.8. And 11/20, 0.55. All right, now we're going to get into our very last one, and that is taking a percent and turning it into a fraction or a decimal. First of all, you want to look at the word percent. The word per means out of, and cent means 100. So when you're saying per cent, it means out of 100. Finding the percent is when you're finding the ratio of something to the whole, which is 100. This is why when we say 100%, it means the whole thing, because you have 100 out of 100 items. So you have 100%. So writing a percent is the same as writing a ratio. It's easy to change a percent to a fraction. You start with 15%. Now that means 15 out of 100. So if you're thinking of it as 15 out of 100, you would write it as the fraction 15 over 100, which means 15 out of 100. So there we have our fraction, or percent, and we turned it into our fraction. Why don't you try a few? Here you have 25% equals, so go ahead and convert these three to a fraction. Okay, you'll see 25% means 25 out of 100, which is 25 over 100. 73% means 73 out of 100, which is 73 over 100. And 3% is 3 out of 100, which is 3 out of 100. So that's how you convert a percent to a fraction. Now doing a percent to the decimal, you do the same steps, change it to a fraction, and then you use place value to help. Okay, so here I would take 73% and I'm going to convert it into a fraction, 73 over 100, and then I take a look at our place value chart. And so I have my power of 10, and I would think 73 hundredths is 0.73, 73 hundredths. And so that's how you convert a percent to a decimal. There's another way to do this too, and a lot of people use it as the quick way. But really it's a long way that leads to the quick way. One way you can think of it is 48% is 40 over 100. And 40 over 100 is the same as saying 40 divided by 100, which is the same as saying 40 divided by 10 to the power of 2, because 100 is 10 to the power of 2. Well, instead of doing 10 divided by the power of the 2, I can reverse that. Oh, that should be 48. 48 divided by 10 to the power of 2. Now, dividing by the power of 2 would be the opposite of multiplying by the power of negative 2. So it's the same as 48 times 10 to the negative second power. Now, this should be very familiar. This is a skill that we've worked on quite a bit, and I hope you can walk through the step. I have 48 over 100 equals 48 divided by 100, which written out is 48 divided by 10 to the power of 2, because 100 can be written as 10 to the power of 2. I reverse that. I have 48 times 10 to the negative second. And we've learned, in order to write that then in standard form, take the decimal, and because it's a negative 2, you go back 2 places and you put your 0. So you can take 48%, take where you know the decimal is, move that decimal back 2 places, and you end up with 0.48 as your decimal. So this was a long explanation to follow the rule. To change from a percent to a decimal, you move the decimal 2 places to the left. But what you're actually doing is you're dividing by 10 to the power of 2. Along with your journal pages tonight, I want you to make sure you fill out the chart in your Google Docs. I have a chart where you're converting between fractions, decimals, and percents. It's been shared with you. You be sure you make a copy because you will not be able to edit the master copy. And then let's do our what is it. Here was our image in the beginning, and you had to guess what that image is. And if you looked very closely, you would have seen that it is Velcro. It's a magnified image of Velcro.